Hello again. Yeah, so lots of thoughts. Been staying busy, working on the house, doing the floor, the base. Um, I figure, yeah, it's gonna definitely take till the end of this month to get the floor done. It's gonna be a 1,300 foot or plus square foot house. And then in July, I'm gonna work on the walls and the sheeting, the windows, and then in August, I'll do the roof. So that's been, yeah, kind of what's been going on with me. And I don't know the demographic that I'm really speaking to because while I talk about MGTOW, I'm actually quite well beyond it. So, um, a story for me in that was in 2007 on March 31st. I I was riding with my bicycle that I had just bought from a yard sale because my key broke off in the ignition, and I came across four girls as I was riding back to my car. Because I had to go back to the place where I was staying to get my spare key to take it to my car for my car to start up again. And on my way, there were four girls in the yard that ran up to me and they were like, "Hi, or hey, mister, how's your evening going, And I just kind of I was like, this is different. And I looked at them and I looked around and I didn't see any vehicles in the driveway. I'm like, well, this is very odd. And really what came to my mind was these women are underage. And I'm pretty sure that they were, right? So I looked at them and I was thinking about it for a few minutes. Well, more like a minute. And then, while there was just this silence, I said, you all look underage. I don't know if I said underage or you guys look like minors. And anyways, they had this puzzled look on their face and they were like, "No, no, no, no. We're of age. We're of age." Yeah, that's what I said. You girls don't look of age. And I just kind of waited a little bit longer until I finally said, "Yeah, I'm going to go in the military." And then I just turned my head and I proceeded forward. And one of the girls was running after me apparently because I could hear her. And she was like, "No, wait, stop, don't go." Oh, well, okay. So first I could hear her running after me. And I said back, without looking behind me, I said, "I'm 27." And that's when she said, "No, wait, stop, don't go." Um, and then I just, something like took a hold of me and I just continued on. And I really believe that it was fear. Now there's some things of course, that, you know, also led up to that conclusion that I came to. But certainly, the fact that they did appear to be 15 years old, all of them. Now, if there would have been vehicles in the parking lot or the driveway, I'd have been like, all right, maybe you're telling the truth. But there was no vehicles. So, yeah, I continued on, and yeah, it made me feel pretty good, at night that I was desirable and stuff, and um I kind of had a gut feeling like something was off. But anyways, I continued, with my decision, and as I was leaving to go to boot camp, and I'm walking to the door because I have like literally 1 minute before I have to go. My best friend comes walking up to the door, walking up the driveway. And this was like a month and a half later after that incident with the girls. And he says she dumped me. And I patted him on the back and I'm like, you two will work it out, you know. And then I left. And I know that sounds really freaking cruel. It does. It sounds devastatingly cruel. And this is what I've been battling for all these years. Is like, man, if only I would have stayed, if only I would have tried. But the details get even more substantial. And so I go through the military. I already talked about Gaddafi. I got out with an honorable discharge. And I knew that it was going to be a miserable time. I knew that. But my thought was, hey, I know it's going to be horrible, but I'm doing it so that I can get my college paid for, you know. And, well, when I got back, I wanted to party. I had saved up some money. My friend got into drugs and was like hanging by a thread. And, but I wanted to like get him back to normal again. But at that point it was too late. He was already too hooked on drugs. And then he dies. I'm not making light of it, of course, but then he died. And I ended up going to the doctor because I wanted to get off of alcohol. And there was this medicine called naltrexone. And, you know, the doctor told me about it, and I said, "Oh, it sounds like a plan. Sounds like something I'd try." And then he kind of, threw in this little caveat of, "Yeah, but when you take this medicine, just make sure that you don't drink, right?" Which I didn't know exactly what he was saying. So I was like, okay, yeah, all right. And I began taking this medicine. and I began noticing, like, changes happening with my body. And, I was at work and, we were cleaning up and stuff, and the boss man says, "Yeah, I'll buy you guys some dinner or whatever, you know. You guys want Burger King?" And my coworker was like, "Yeah, I'll take a double Whopper." He's like, "You want that too, Brandon?" And all of a sudden, my stomach was like, and I just was like, yeah, yeah, you know, because normally a double Whopper is, I mean, most guys like burgers. So, I mean, I'm no exception to that rule. And anyway, so I have this double Whopper anyway, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a task or a trip we went on because I was with a moving company. I was a truck driver. And I didn't happen to drive that um, at that precise job. But anyways, it was like a really long day. We did like 14 hours. And then mind you, like um, we get back and I had already taken the pill before I left for work, and there was an hour-long drive to work, and then there's an hour-long drive back. And so I had taken the pill before I left for work. I come back and that voice of the doctor, what the doctor said was going in my head. It was don't make sure you don't drink on this. So I made very, very carefully to choose to take a micro sip of some vodka. And when I did that, immediately my body just broke. Um and it kicked off pancreatitis like immediately. Um and so I called the hospital, and you know, I talked to the telenurse, whatever, blah blah blah. Anyway, I went through all that, right? And that was 2 weeks in the hospital. Lo and behold, I did not know about this, but actually it was not naltrexone that I was given. It was Antabuse. And Antabuse stays in your system for a month. After you take one pill, the effects last for a month, and you don't get any kind of effect other than that. I'm sure many of you know about Antabuse. I didn't know a damn thing about it. Um, and I didn't know about it staying in your body for a month until this when I went to the mental hospital. Um, and anyways, so I get out of the hospital, and what would be seen with my eyes was this older dude with this absolutely kick-ass MKZ Lincoln and this smoking hot young chick. I mean, smoking hot. And I was like, man, FML, you know? So that really just kind of sent me into back to drinking again. I was like, I don't know what in the hell is going on with me, but I really screwed up because it wasn't just that one incident. It was like several where I was hearing about 32-year-olds getting with 19-year-olds, and it was like, "Fucker, I could have had that. If I would have just stayed and waited 3 whole damn years, I probably could have maybe got with those girls, right?" So over all these years, over that whole decade of my 30s, I have just been beating the literal shit out of myself. I mean, just like, you know, uh, in romper room on like crack. I never did crack, never did drugs other than alcohol, but outside of smoking a joint. But yeah, um I it did something to my brain, and I was like, man, I really, because the last time I was able to actually snag a date, whatever, was with a woman who was like below mid, was a single mom. And one of the first things she was telling me was that when she was in her teens, she was banging 40-year-olds, and I'm like, what in the hell? And I, yeah, it wasn't appealing to me. I'm like, ah. So after that, though, it was, I was able to talk to women online and stuff, but then, you know, uh, it was just, they were teasing me, you know. It was enticement only to be met with a hand in the face. Um, and so, I was like, whatever, you know, fine. And you couple that with my mom and all the nonsense that went through with that, and it was just, oh my. And then on top of that, like for the nice third scoop, um, absolutely horrible jobs where I was making a whopping $9.50 and being yelled at for not shoveling fast enough. Oh, that's not how you shovel. This is how you shovel. Meanwhile, the guy, the owner is making, my goodness, what, 50 bucks, 70 buck, $100, who knows? I don't know. An hour where I'm making 950. I mean, like hauling these big freaking rocks, landscaping rocks, to the point where uh, my pants split in the back. Literally, like right along my butt crack. My pants split. Um, it wasn't painful at all, but it was painfully embarrassing. And the whole, boy, oh boy, that whole charade. 9.50 an hour. Um, we worked 6 days a week on Saturday from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. Mind you, the bank opens at 9 and closes at 12. So I'm not able to cash any of my checks because this doofus, well, okay, he wasn't a doofus. He was just a straight up prick. Wanted to not have the paper trail of direct deposit. So he would actually write out the checks. Direct deposit was not an option. And every single one of the guys that I worked with had a significant other. Until the one guy that I was like working closest with um lost his girlfriend. And he went there, she was chatting online with some guy in Colorado, where she was from, and she went back to Colorado, and he got full permission to go off and chase her. Well, when he chased her, that meant we were short a guy. So of course, me being the newbie, I had to bust my ass even harder, because these guys were all like, you know, major pains. And they were very grumpy, unhappy guys for many reasons, I'm sure. But needless to say, um yeah, I couldn't handle the workload anymore, and I ended up accidentally bumping into the door of one of the work trucks that was um getting ready to be, taken out. The owner had just replaced the door, and I ran into it with the backhoe. Anyway, needless to say, yeah, I got fired. It was cool. Um, he really deserved that. I felt terrible at the time, but yeah, he deserved it completely. And the reason why he deserved it completely was because I was sitting on 3 checks, and I uh I was given permission by my supervisor to go and cash the checks in the morning. He he meets me out there. I was watering plants, and he's like, "Why were you late?" I was like, "Because Dennis said I could go and cash my check because I was sitting on 3 checks." And he just got all frustrated, and he just started swearing at me, and I was like, "Man, just whatever." Swearing at Dennis, it's stupid. Anyway, to say all that, yeah, man, I was a mess. And I've been through some really tough times. Really tough times. Uh, Roofing job after that, horrible. Horrible, horribly depressing. Um, so yeah, it's felt like my entire life has been nothing but a damn squeeze. But now there's AI. And these women who have been doing these OnlyFans and putting the squeeze on us, um, they're starting to get a little, hair up their butt. And for good reason, because they are losing they're losing their sting. And we make fun of these simps and stuff like that, but I tell you, man, without actually knowing about, what was going on, it was just kind of behind the scenes kind of thing that just had us doing all these crazy mental gymnastics over, you know, over trying to get just a mid. And I wasn't putting up with it. I wasn't. I wasn't having it, you know. Yeah, I might not think highly of myself, and I didn't think highly of myself, and quite frankly, I was a mid. Um, but I was a mid. The hell am I? Oh, Raymond. I'm sorry. I was just thinking, why did I use that word? Quite. Anyway, I I was thinking that yeah, I could do something better, you know. But anyways, so it was that Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams. And ever since I watched that movie, I was like, yeah, if I build it, they will come. And I was right to an extent, you know. I was. I was right. But man, they came with a vengeance, though. And then I got all tossed about and my house burnt down. Two-story, beautiful house, 1,100 square feet. First house I ever owned. And I'll go into that story some other time. But needless to say, it was actually one of the most best blessings I had ever had was my house burning down and me losing everything. It got me out of so much um relationship issues that I mean, yeah, it was like I got shit on, pissed on, all of it, all of it. But it turned out to be the best thing ever. Not for me, not for me, but for other guys. And they were well deserved to benefit from me getting pooped on because I had an issue with pride. And that leads me to this other thought I had is about angels. You know, now for the longest time, I would think about angels in the sense of them being, around God and being perfect and all this other stuff. But it made me really think, like, now that angels make mistakes too. You know, they do. They obviously, I mean, a third of them were deceived into. Now, were they deceived or did they straight up know? Anyway, either way, they have their own autonomy. They are all individuals. Except the difference between us and them is that they are constantly around God. And then, that kind of goes back to perhaps understanding generations about, like, what came before, what came before. Because my mom would tell me about my grandpa and, like, how horrible it was for him, after the World War II, and how he would be just sometimes he would just lose it and start yelling at grandma and stuff like that. Mind you, he had an incredible job. He basically had everything like on a platter, making really good money and stuff, but it was about the flashbacks from World War II and things that my grandpa told me things that he wouldn't tell anyone. And I kept my promise, even though he didn't tell me to keep my promise, he just knew that I would. Um, yeah. He told me things in confidence. It was really quite interesting. And like, so my mom saw a different side of my grandpa than what I saw because my grandpa was nothing but the most amazing guy. I mean, Mr. Rogers couldn't hold a match to my grandpa. I mean, he was such an incredible guy. Um, but there was things that my mom, of course, would do to me that just kind of drove me up a tree. I didn't know about what the things were that she was going through that drove her up a tree, and there was that ignorance, ignorance, and but somehow, some way, it just kind of recoils, and um, I say all that to say that that, like people that were born after 9/11, the Zoomers for the most, um, they don't really have the weight of that on them, you know? Yeah, it was tragic and everything for them, but I mean their heads are lighter, they're yeah. And that praise God, I mean, but yeah, so the thing of it is that we're not around God all the time. So it's kind of like we have to, go by our instincts and notice like little things here and there. And basically, um, women have had the upper hand for a really long time. And now we men might actually have this might actually be the culmination of our aspirations. We're coming up to it. And I think it's really amazing because damn right we deserve it. Damn right. I mean, I gave you guys a little taste of what I had gone through. And there was absolutely nothing I could do to have changed it other than handed over the levers of power to these women who I knew nothing about. They were 15 years old. I would have had to wait 3 years to even be able to date them, you know, but it was something that I couldn't do. So maybe that was my saving grace. Maybe my saving grace was, to leave. But it drove me nuts at the same time because like every preceding year, like we I, I just began to lose uh, power. To I was it was like the sand was just going through my fingers, and that's not how it should be, you know. But now with this advent of AI and the owner of OnlyFans selling it off, I mean, we might have a chance here. There might actually be something substantial coming. So I say, have faith, you know, always keep looking up and appreciating every single day. I thank you guys so much for being here. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you all later. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.